Hello, listeners. Welcome to our summer replay series. In order to help us get through the summer, do family time, vacations, just survive, all that stuff, we decided to replay 4 episodes. The cool thing about this is we each picked one of our favorite episodes, and we recorded a intro to each where we discuss a little bit of the background of the episode and why we love it. So make sure you check these out if you've heard them before. I think these are all great episodes to listen to again. And if you haven't heard them, these are 4 really good episodes. So check it out. First up, we have Jenn's pick.
This week is my summer series replay, and I chose the episode with Chelsey Hautz, which was Kaya's occupational therapist. I re-listened to this episode and was blown away yet again at her determination to help our children, her thinking outside of the box, and how to best support our kids. She talks about her approach to occupational therapy and working with kiddos like ours, and how much value they hold in this world. So take a listen. It's a good one. It is by far my favorite episode. Go find yourself a Chelsey.
I love that Chelsey gave me a lot of language before this episode by way of you, Jenn. Then the episode just sort of reinforces her whole mentality that what Celie needs to be balanced, to be okay, is her right. It is not a privilege. And I don't think that there's any other one singular sentence that has had that impact in the same way. Like, I really don't. I feel like it made an impact on how we go to the doctor and how we go to OT and what we expect out of meetings at school or whatever it is. Like, in every setting, it's my daughter's right, not some sort of privilege.
She actually came with me when we toured the private autism school that my daughter attended for a little shy of a year. And one of the things is they didn't have a sensory room, and they really didn't understand the sensory needs. They felt like it was a reward, that they were just swinging. They really didn't understand how important it was for their bodies to have that movement, which she talks really in depth in the episode about. Like Rachel said, that it shouldn't be an earned privilege. It shouldn't be something taken away. It's their right. They need to move their body. We need to be where they're at, kind of thing. So it's obviously one of my favorite episodes.
She just has like such a good vibe too. Like she, when you find like those perfect people who really, she knows what she's doing. She knows how to talk about it. And then she also has the personality for it, which is like such a rare combo and like any provider in this life.
Where she's got like the nerd and the charm.
Yes.
And she did, like, she's like, why don't you go for coffee? Or why don't you go get some groceries? Or basically, why don't you leave the gym? And then I actually really came to like enjoy that time. I knew she was in really great hands. She didn't look back. She was just with Chelsey.
I love that when you find people that are just so passionate about our children and are able to be so in sync with them, like on just another level, like the level that we are. But like, obviously they're our children. So like, that's our responsibility to do that. For somebody outside to want to do that with our children, I think, those are diamonds.
And just so much more than just like an OT. I got really lucky. Our SLP recommended Chelsey, and then Chelsey's like, she really needs intense feeding. We can do feeding here once a week where she's playing with peas for 15 minutes, but she's not going to eat, Jenn. She needs intense therapy. And there's this place, and she got me onto the feeding clinic. So I think it's
so cool when it's not just a cool person with the charm and the know, but she's got a network of like-minded people in those other lanes. That's just gold to meet.
Yeah.
A person like that.
Amazing. Really, really, really made an impact in our journey. And I'm forever, forever grateful to her. And I hope she comes back soon because we miss her. Check the episode out.
Enjoy the listen.
One of my faves. Yeah.
Welcome to Talk Like a Mother Parenting Autism Podcast. We are Jenn, Kim, Rachel, and Jamie. Take a seat at our table as we share with hope, humor, and honesty.
Listen, you could put this in the intro if you need to, but I'm telling you what, I didn't picture little Chelsey like that.
She's gorgeous.
Isn't she gorgeous?
Freaking
Number
gorgeous.
1, gorgeous. Number 2, she doesn't look strong enough to come as the package of power that she is. She looks dainty. Yeah, she's amazing.
That was great. She's
Isn't she
amazing, Jenn.
Isn't she amazing?
She's so good. That was awesome.
Hello, and thank you for joining us tonight. Seated at the table is Tabitha Cabrera.
Hello.
Jamie Ramos. Hi. Rachel Flanagan.
Hey, everyone.
Kim McIsaac.
Hello.
Joining us tonight is Chelsey Hautz.
Hi.
And I'm Jennifer Dunn. Thank you for joining us tonight, Chelsey. I'm so happy you are here.
And thanks for having me. I'm honored to sit at this table tonight.
So Chelsey is Kaya's occupational therapist. And I met Chelsey through Kaya's speech language pathologist, who looked her up and found her for me when Kaya's speech appointments really just became OT. Jackie was carrying her upside down. She was dangling, and she said, "Jen, this kid needs some serious OT." And I didn't know anything about occupational therapy. And she, through colleagues, found Chelsey. And I think 4 years later, 5 years maybe, here we are.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been a long
I think
time.
it's about 5. I didn't actually look. But
Yeah, it's been a long time. She was tiny.
Yeah.
She didn't eat. She didn't talk. She was tiny. Yeah. So thank you for being here tonight. Chelsey, can you introduce yourself?
My name's Chelsey Hautz. I'm originally an Albertan. I currently reside in North Vancouver, British Columbia. My family is embarking on another international adventure. We love to travel, and so I've worked as an OT in Canada, in the UK, in Hong Kong, now back in BC, and then I will be working as an OT in the Middle East shortly.
That's
So
incredible.
yeah, it's pretty exciting. And so that's kind of me. I'm a mom of 2 children. My kids are 7.5 and almost 5. I love sports and hiking and the outdoors. I don't know. Helps inform a lot of the movement. I think I became an OT by virtue of my own sensory and motor profile. And I guess one thing to share is like, I love my job. Love my job. And although there are hard days and paperwork makes me go crazy, being in the gym and meeting with families, I know I am in my place of purpose and meaning. And so I just really enjoy it. So yeah, I'm excited to be here and share a little bit about that with you.
Kaya just loves you. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really understand. I mean, I really didn't understand, but I thought of you the other night because her ballet teacher said, oh, her core strength on the bottom is so much stronger since she came back from the pandemic, just over the weeks of dancing. And I was like, oh, Chelsey talked about her core strength, losing her core strength over COVID. And then when she came back to the gym, how she didn't have that. So for our listeners that maybe don't know a lot about occupational therapy, what it does for our kids, how important it is, could you talk a little bit about that? And then the ladies have some questions for you.
Yeah, I mean, that is a big question. When I went to grad school, our professors said to us, you will spend the rest of your career explaining what you do. A lot of people have a hard time because we work in so many different areas of practice. You know, you can have an occupational therapist that is a hand specialist and doing post-surgical rehabilitation on hands. And you can have the infant cranial remodeling person or the NICU feeding therapist. And then you can have someone in the retirement home or long-term care facility and so many different areas. So I think that's what I love about what we do is that we're all about helping people find meaningful occupation, which is whatever it is that they do. A child's role in the world is to play and to be part of their family and to be integrated into their communities in some way, shape, or form. And so for pediatric OTs, we focus a lot on all the different physical systems, sensory systems, motor systems, visual systems, and how that physical experience, physiological experience for a child, coupled with their environments, their relationships, the demand that's required of them, all mixes together in terms of them being meaningful participants in their world, right? And being able to make sense and meaning of their world. And so I think my understanding of my role has changed over the years and my practice has changed over the years, even since meeting Kaya. You know, every year I evolve slightly differently. And then even within pediatric practice, we all take different sort of directions on what we specialize in and how we navigate professional development and how we might provide services. So some therapists are more behavior-based, others are more relational, others will focus more on mental health and less on some of the other areas, and some are just really good at printing and handwriting and motor skill-based stuff. So, you know, in reality, there's no one-size-fits-all therapist, just like there's no one similar autistic child, right? And so, yeah, we do a lot of different things, but really it's about helping kids make meaning of their world, make sense of their world and to be participants to the point that they want to be in their world.
I have never in my life, Chelsey, heard of OT described in this fashion. And I'm
Me either.
yes. I just
Amazing.
want to let you know that everybody's driving off the road to find your name on the Google. She's moving to the Middle East, folks. You can't,
You can't bugger at this point.
I might start an online consultation. I
Well,
still haven't figured
we're
out
ready
what
for
I'm
that.
doing
You
yet.
let us know. We'll get you a
Yeah.
commercial on a podcast.
Please.
Holy mackerel. Chelsey, I have to stop you in this Q&A because I want to tell you just so deeply that I appreciate you, and I've never heard you speak. Now I know why Jenn's world has changed, and you have changed my perspective on movement for my daughter and what her needs are and how that needs to be integrated into life. And I just want to thank you from just the deepest parts of my tired soul for helping us to navigate what life is like for my kid. You know, I think it's just, thank you.
That's really special to hear.
I mean, one of the things that, and you know, we did a meeting about when Kaya was going into her new program. And one of the things that Chelsey said is that, you know, the movements and the breaks aren't a reward. Those are her rights. She's entitled to those breaks for her body. She physically needs those breaks. And even for me, I was like, you know, it's, you know, that's what she needs, although she can't verbalize that that's what she needs. But I mean, she's whipping on that swing at,
I'm
you know,
serious,
90 miles an hour right now.
again for the people in the back, because
Yeah.
that is a right.
There,
You know.
even just the idea that your children's experience their world, the way they experience it is different, you know, from child to child. And to say to a child that it's not okay that you know, are listening and walking and pacing, because that's the way that they are able to regulate their system, the way they're able to actually hone in on the potentially the sound or the visual input that they're trying to make sense of, because they're able to pace or rock or move or stand in front of it in whatever way they do. And so at the end of the day, I think one of the biggest things that I say to families and say to schools is that movement is essential. This isn't like a negotiable. I don't care how bad that child has been on in your books that day. This is a non-negotiable. So regardless of what happens, this child needs to move, you know, and sometimes we have to set a timeline. Like I hate saying every 5 minutes or every 15 minutes, because at the end of the day, I want them to watch that child and adapt to their flow and to their rhythms and to follow their lead on that. But if I have to, I'll say, okay, it's got to be every 15 minutes. They've got to get up and be free to move, or, you know, whatever it is. Maybe there's a rocker board in the back of the classroom, or maybe there's like a swing. And Jenn, I think the swing made a huge difference. When Jenn got that swing, it was like Kaya just all of a sudden had this like natural opportunity to just regulate herself constantly. And you saw a huge difference in her. And I think like after a couple of weeks, I was like, so how much is she using it anyways? And here I'm thinking like, I hope she's using it at home, because I recommended this. I thought it was really important. Jen's like, she's never not on it.
Like, so like my handyman has to come and he buys the 2,200 pound clip for it, and he changes it monthly because she's on it so excessively that it's just constantly rubbing. And she gets on, it's the first thing she gets on in the morning. And a lot of times she's not even moving. It's just that slow, she's in that hammock and
she like drifts.
Yeah, she just drifts in it. It was the best.
Jenn said that to me when my daughter is a huge seeker of input and said, huge. And Jenn said that to me. She must have been like a little bit over 2. And Jenn's like, you got to get that girl a swing. Get her a swing.
And you got her the pod one, and she loved it.
One. She loved it. Yeah, she loved
but like
it.
the girls, like that's sort of like the hammock that Kaya has now. But that squeeze one is like a whole other bear. Like, oh my gosh. There's just so many different parts of movement.
Yeah, totally. There's so many different options. And I think, this came back to the idea that it's an absolute pet peeve of mine that sensory and movement breaks are rewards for kids. They have to work hard to get what their body needs. You would never do that with food. Like we wouldn't withhold food from our children, or like you just think about yourself. You don't withhold what the body needs to regulate itself and calm the nervous system. I think about kids as nervous systems now. I don't really think about them as like, the essentials, because every kid needs movement, but their little nervous systems are in hyper aroused states compared to their peers because of their neurodiversity. So that state needs to be offered the opportunity to just like, it's like a pressure release or just a coming down so that they can exist in a more reasonable wavelength of capacity rather than constantly being tapped out because they're not allowed to do the things that they need to do.
The phrasing though gives so much power to the fact that it's insulin for a diabetic, though, that it isn't the big sticker at the end of the chart. It is to be healthy, to be capable, to be present.
That's what I was going to say. It promotes learning. I mean, if you want a kid who's having struggles in the classroom to be able to learn, then don't take away their way to regulate themselves in order to be able to learn. It makes sense. Yeah.
Totally.
Makes sense.
We just had the first time my son Jesse, his teacher, mentioned to me that he didn't finish some work or something. She's like, so he missed a little bit of recess. And I was like, so the teacher got a little, I was very
that's not happening again.
I was just like, well, I'm going to say, no, let's not do that anymore. I was really nice about it. It was the first time. And she didn't completely take away recess. It was kind of like he had to work into recess or something like that. But I was like, yeah, let's make sure he gets those breaks because he needs that.
Yeah.
If not, we're going to have an IEP meeting. So you might want to just do that if you don't want to waste an hour of your time.
It's already working harder than everybody else. I just think, how is this reasonable?
Yeah. So Chelsey, for our listeners that maybe don't understand how important or what those breaks or what Kaya getting in, I'll just use Kaya for an example, getting in that swing and moving in that swing, what does that do for our children, that movement?
Oh man, that's a good question. This was not on the list. I didn't.
I just love it when you explain this.
Basically, we think about top-down approaches versus bottom-up approaches. And bottom-up is really targeting low-level brainstem and sort of systems in the body that help us to regulate. You use that word, Tabitha, of like that whole regulatory system of balance, coordination, taking in your visual environment, all that sort of stuff. So when kids are when they have sensory profiles that are mixed or sort of off kilter. And I actually don't even want to say that because all of ours are different, right? Like I have a definitely distinct sensory profile I've learned over the years. And so when I come home at the end of the day, my earplugs go in because I've been dealing with kids all day, and to deal with my own, I have to navigate sound because I've had 10 hours of sound already and I'm done. And that's, one of my unique sensitivities I've learned over the years, but we all have a profile. And so if that child's cup is really big for movement or vestibular input through that ear canal, like they need to fill that cup in order to feel regulated and sort of present in their world. A lot of our kids have low registration. So that means that their nervous system isn't picking up on all the salient information in the room. They might be picking up all of it at once, and then it's disorganized and they're not quite sure what to do with it, or they're not picking up everything. And so that's really about helping them hone in on all of the cues in their environment to organize their own system with sensory processing, because we're not just taking in one sense at a time, right? We have to integrate multiple senses. And so these inputs, these movement breaks and these different kinds of inputs that are so specific to each child help them to integrate and make sense. And so from that bottom up approach, it's not so this is what your brain does. It's not a cognitive thinking process that they then apply to what's going on for them. They're moving, they're feeling, they're sensing, and their nervous system is changing because of it. And so that's how it changes. There's a science to it. There's a real individual experience on everyone's part. And so I think our expertise. And over time, you kind of parents get to hone in on, oh, this is too much, right? Like they need a lot of this input, but oh, wait a second, we just put them over the edge versus like, oh, you know what? It would help if we just added a bit more input here or took away some input. There's too much sound. There's too many visuals to process, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it just really depends, but it's that real bottom up approach to how do we integrate all those senses that help us to move and process, understand, and then ultimately execute our own plans and our own autonomous steps into the world, right? Whether that's learning related or friendship related or sports or activity related, it doesn't really matter. But it's a bit of a hierarchy, and that lower system needs to be fed.
I always think of it like when I think of my kids overstimulated or like too much input, I think of it like in movies when they're traveling through space and everything's zipping by their face so quickly that they can't like take in anything that's passing them. And so when you slow it down a little bit, then they can see what's happening around them in whatever way you can get that into their system to kind of slow down the image.
Totally. And that goes right back to that question that Jenn asked, like about the pause.
Yes.
And so maybe we segue into that idea of, the slowing down and shifting our pace is probably like the hanger I've been hanging my coat on for the last year with families and people and teachers, and like slow down. Slow everything down. And this isn't dumb down. This is slow down, because by slowing down, we get to actually be more present to the subtleties and the slight shifts that these kids they're giving us clues all the time, right? And in some sort of theories and paradigms, we call this expectant waiting. Stanley Greenspan in like floor time approach calls it the wait, watch, wonder, right? The slowing down, just the opportunity for that child to just know that you're experiencing this moment with them without having to interrupt it at all. And also that opportunity for you as the parent or the caregiver or the teacher to watch, or even the therapist to watch and go, I wonder what's coming next. And in that, our kids can use us as that co-regulatory grounding force when the world feels like it's going past them so fast.
I think about pausing. So with my son, it was like, especially in the beginning when we knew there was at least a delay, we didn't know it was autism. We really started working on like, okay, we got to get him playing games and doing this and this. And so always like bringing things to him, like, okay, let's try doing this. Let's try doing that. And I remember one day I was just sitting out on our porch, like we have a little swing out there, and my son just came and sat with me. And this might sound weird to people, but my son had never just sat with me before. And we just sat together and swing on the thing. And I just sat there and I didn't move because I was afraid I'd scare him off or something. Yeah. But that's really the first time I learned like part of that pause. And just like you were saying, is entering their world and just sitting with them in there and seeing where they lead. Like it was a big lesson for me. And then as I came into the autism world, a lot of people are like, yeah, you have to join them in their world. But I think that pause is such a big part of that, because we're just trying to guide and get what we can out of them and push them. We need to do this. We need to learn this, but we got to enter their world first and kind of see how they move. And then we can join in. And I think that's a big part of that pause for me.
And it goes to so many things. Like my daughter recently started not wanting to put her shoes on as we're leaving in the morning. And so I'm like, how can we modify this to where I'm not climbing underneath the table to like try and put the shoes on? I mean, I'm a small person. I've climbed into many tiny places at this point in my life. But so she has 2 pairs of shoes that she likes. So I placed them on the floor and I scooted one. Do you want this one? My daughter's nonverbal. Or do you want this one? And then I waited. And she looked at them and we tried it again. And then finally she pointed to the purple shoes. And then she climbed out of the table herself and stood up and slipped her feet in her shoes. I'm like, this is great. Now I don't have to like, but it takes a conscious effort to slow yourself down, because we're in such a hustle movement, parenting, getting all the things done. And I will say that is the greatest lesson I think I've learned about both of my children, is that I need to learn to slow myself down.
Slow down, yeah.
So much. And it is hard. And some days I'm
No
like,
rushing.
can we get to the car?
No rushing.
Lord, let us get in this car this morning.
You
Kim
walk
says
such
that
a
all the
line,
time.
though.
You can't rush
Yeah,
Melissa.
it's so
And you can't rush
it's
Kaya either. You just can't.
you need so much patience. Everything just takes so much longer. Like my daughter is, she's on the severe side. She has receptive language is weak. Cognitively, she just, I don't know. She's like all over the place though, because sometimes it's like, I'm like, how do you know this? Like, but you didn't understand that, it's very inconsistent with her, but it's like, you have to be so patient. It's so hard because sometimes you just want to be like, let's go. But like,
Do the thing.
You can't do it. And it's like, always, I struggle with the thing of like, she just really needs things broken down for her. But at the same time, when I do that, sometimes I'm not giving her the minute to process. Her processing it's there, but it's slow. So it's like, but when you're repeating yourself to try to like help her understand, sometimes I'm like messing up with that process. So it's like hard to like do both, I guess. And she kind of needs both. So it's hard to know like when she needs the pause and then when she needs
a prompt,
the repetition. Yeah.
It's like a dance, isn't it? This dance. And I think honestly, Kim, I love hearing that because it feels like that as a therapist sometimes. Like you're expected to know what the answer is when that happens. And sometimes actually I'm trialing and erroring things too. And one time the pause works really well, and another time the extra little prompt helped boost the effort. And it's just, I think that's part of the dance, and it changes as they go through the ages.
Yeah.
I'm in a position now where I'm not working with this child anymore, but I have like kids I started with at 6 who are now graduating from high school, and that's pretty crazy. It makes you feel like, whoa, how did that happen? I still imagine you as a 6-year-old sitting in
yes.
And now you're graduating. And so it's pretty cool, but that's exactly it. It's never, I don't think it's ever clear cut. It's not this is a gray area that we're constantly navigating. And actually, I think parent capacity has a lot to do with our ability to pause, because it's really easy to say it, but if our ability to regulate our own nervous systems, whether we're trying to get on the door on time or whatever's happened that day, the pause is actually one of the hardest things to do when you're regulated yourself.
Yeah. That's a great segue. So the episode that came out right before this one, we did a PSA to providers as our perspective as the parents to the providers, because we talked a lot about how like sometimes providers forget that like we're seeing multiple providers and there's being a lot asked of us, or we're came into this world and we're trying to learn OT and speech and everything all at once. So we kind of did an episode about that. So we wanted kind of your perspective on like twofold question here. Yep. What's the best advice you've gotten from parents yourself? Like what have you learned like interacting with the parents and seeing, or being a parent yourself? Like, we always talk about sometimes it's nice when people have kids themselves because they kind of understand a little better. Yeah. And then also, what is your advice, like your biggest advice to parents?
I thought about these questions a lot, actually. I have like kind of a layered answer to it, but I do say often, Jamie, to my colleagues, the best professional development I have ever done was have my own children, because you just step into a different place of empathy and understanding. I do think I was quite empathetic before, but just a bit too energetic and well slept to truly understand.
Well slept.
We need a little darker circles under the eyes to relate.
And you're just kind of like, they walk in and you're thinking like, how could it be that hard? But like, it is. It's not hard.
We know they think that before they make some or buy some. We know that.
Totally. And so,
you know that by your freshly done eyebrows. Those chirpy ones always have those.
Oh my gosh. I try really hard. I try to show up like, pulled together, but it was so funny. One of my moms, like during that phase where I didn't have kids, and she was so tuned into me, and they showed up for their session, and she was kind of side-eyeing me the whole time because I was pregnant and so sick, and she could tell, and I was working really hard at masking that I was all good, but she was like, I knew it. I saw that look on your face that I knew there was something growing inside there. And so anyway, so best advice that I've learned from parents, I couldn't think of something that someone had said to me directly. But what I have learned through my observation of parents and just being part of their journeys while I work with their kids is to always presume competence, not only of their child, but of them. Because I think parents are always doing the best that they can with the resources and capacities and supports they have. And everybody is in a different place. And so there's always more to their story. They have their own profiles. And if their child is neurodiverse, they probably have some level of neurodiversity too, or they've just been navigating this world for a long time and it's hard. And so, like I said, it took me becoming a parent to understand this on a whole new level. And then that idea that watching them, like parents are truly the experts of their children. I am not the expert of their child, but it's my job to ask really good questions, to make really good observations, to use my clinical reasoning and match that with what I can learn from the parents about their child to help navigate what's next, and so, yeah, that's it. Presume competence always of both the parents and the kids. And
I do too.
And make me cry a little bit. I didn't like that, hit a spot for me when you said that. I'm a crier, as I always cry. But when you said that about parents, like I've never even really thought about that before. But the instant you said that hit a big spot. I do feel like we always feel like we're being talked down to
and judged,
and that we don't know our kids, like as if we're
or know what to do.
Yeah, like as if we're, and I will be honest, there's a lot I don't know, but it's nice to hear someone say that, because I didn't even realize I needed someone to say that, but you don't feel like that a lot. So that's awesome.
What did you say, Tabitha? Did you say we've tried it all? Don't suggest anything.
Yeah. By the time we've gotten to you, we've tried 10 things, all of those things on your list.
Everything on your list we've tried.
I always feel so intimidated when someone comes in like that. I'm like, okay, I might ask you to try again.
I usually say to providers, like if they start down the list, and I'm in a place where I'm already dealt with this, either from my son who was first, and now we're on the second round of this challenging situation that we're in. But I usually say to them, like, I understand that you're giving me the best resources that you have, but can we have a creative solution outside of the regular list that you would give to someone? Can we come back at a different time? Like, you think about this question, and then we'll meet.
Go talk to 3 other of your peers and friends, and then come back to me with some more ideas.
Yes.
I've Pinterested the heck out of this, and I still don't have the answer.
We've tried it.
Rachel's daughter, Celie, is very, very much a sensory seeker like Kaya. She's got one of the swings, and she just, her dog gets in there, and she just needs to be squished all the time. But I think one of the biggest things I learned from you is how important that sensory input is for Kaya on a day-to-day. And I see it in Celie, Nora, Tabitha's daughter over COVID. What did you take out? The gates tabs that you flipped upside down, her feet, everything's feet sensory. The kid could walk on shards of
glass. I saw her walk on desert rocks the other day.
Her feet, everything sensory is in her feet.
We were home with a cold. We'd been home for too many days, maybe a week or so. And we ran through everything that we could possibly do. And we had this old baby gate that was like hard plastic with all the holes in it. And we just laid that down on the floor, and she was walking back
like
and
a
forth,
duck,
walking back and forth for probably 40 minutes. I would say she was just walking to get her input that she needed, because we'd been
but it
trapped.
was slightly bentish enough that she could slap it. Like every step made like a situation
sound,
and then it like the whole thing
was the combination,
which I wouldn't have understood how important that was.
She was walking. So we
Yeah.
just were in Phoenix near Tabs and had a Airbnb, and it was like the backyard patio had pavers and artificial grass in a part, and then like desert rocks. I'm not sure. What are those desert rocks?
They're like
whatever.
Well, I don't know.
But they're like rough. It's not like these soft river stones of some places. Tabitha, our girls both marched the heck outside eventually. Felt the grout in their toes, felt the brick in their toes, walked. I saw Celie and Nora both go grass, stone, grass, stone, grass, brick, grass, brick, grass, stone. Like,
yeah.
Like they just pivoted and like, you know, they're just taking it in. And it's so funny. They both like did the trees, like their forehead in this tree.
Yeah. Oh, the tree had long hanging stuff.
You know, it's a really interesting Instagram page, input. Chelsey, you should check out, is Evie the Explorer. Her daughter, I know what it's called. Amazing. She can climb a freaking wall. This kid, she's freaking Spider Woman. She can climb and scale anything and get to any top of anything. It's her. She can scale a fence that has nothing on it. She just can. It's wild to watch.
She has a video of her squeezing through a tiny cat door.
Wild.
I was gonna say, often we get frustrated with providers depending on what we have going on ourselves or with our kids or whatever the case may be, who's sitting in front of us on that day. And I joke about solutions. Of course, I always want solutions. That's why we have 14 people in our lives to try and help us out with learning all of these things. Yeah. But some of the most impactful things for our household have come from out of OT. No question about it. Speech and OT, but definitely OT to learn how to make my kids' day easier. Do you have suggestions for parents who maybe don't have the funds to like buy a swing or simple solutions that they can implement in their house to like get that input?
You know, it's so interesting. I was like, the equipment question gets me every time because it's a bit of a pet peeve because equipment is only as effective as its user, its environment, and how well it's supported and how much it makes sense for that individual, right? So, you know, we see that in schools all the time. They'll throw a wobble cushion at somebody or a fidget toy and it doesn't fix the problem and the child's not compliant like they were hoping. And I was like, no, that's not how this works. Like, it's not what the purpose of that piece of equipment is. And so I often say like equipment is just equipment. It's more about like, how do you socialize the child to it? How do you help them use it? Where are they using it? How are, you know, and is it even the input that they need? So I do think that like we can use office chairs, you know, like a swirly office chair in a house is used often, you know, couch cushions where kids can get inverted, you know, you stack couch cushions and then they can go upside down and they can roll down couch cushions. I have managed to fashion myself a gigantic jumping cushion, like a big bean bag, by buying a cheap duvet off of Amazon made out of jersey cotton. It was a twin size. It has a zipper at the bottom. And I had some like scrap foam that I think a parent had actually brought in and said, could you use this? And I was like, well, we'll see. And then I ended up stuffing it into this duvet with some extra blankets and some extra pillows and some stuffies that weren't being loved. And then tying a big knot in it. This is Celie's
dream.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you tie it and like, it's debatable whether my kids are neurotypical or not. I mean, at this point in time, society would tell me that they are, but they, you know, this cushion has gotten the most love in my house than any other. They just jump on it, they roll on it, they squish it. So I always think about equipment as like, can that piece serve multiple purposes and how does it serve us? So like a big couch cushion, even for a child who's low reg, but not necessarily seeking, that cushion gives them tons of input and opportunity to feel their body and figure out where their body is in space. It increases body awareness. It's a cozy spot to cuddle and read books together. It's a fun thing to squish them into, like proprioceptive input. It's also a fun thing to jump into. So they're getting lots of deep pressure through their legs. So I think about like those bang for your buck So if you're going to spend money trying to get something that serves multiple purposes and can do lots of things, but also something you can kind of create on your own from things you have at home, vestibular and proprioceptive input, those two tend to be like the movement inputs that we're always looking at. And if you're changing the position of your head, or you're adding weight or pressure to something, you are getting that input. So you can like put weights in a backpack and run that around, or you can, find some old ankle weights or wrist weights that you found, like anything.
Marshalls has those.
Yeah. Or like have there's lots of different things. There's so many different things. So really, I think it's about figuring out what is it that child is seeking, what helps them regulate, and then trying to find the thing that helps them do that. Swings are so hard to replicate in homes unless you have something hanging. I have seen this standalone camping chair that
Oh yes.
on Amazon. Pardon? You have that one. Yeah. There you go. I haven't actually seen one in person, but I've recommended them a few times this year because I have a couple kids that I think could use them at school, and the school's kind of like, we're not hanging anything from the ceiling. And I said, well, how about you buy this $150 camping chair and see if that works, or even if the parent buys it for the school. So again, there is a cost. That's the hard part, but getting that rocking movement can be hard to replicate without something like that, because also the side to side motion is really nice for kids, and that's a hard one to get unless, I've got like families that like, the older brother and the mom, rock them in a big piece of Lycra. I also am a big Lycra fan. I think
aren't we all?
Yeah.
I mean, not for my own one piece suit, but like for like all the other reasons.
Speak for yourself, Chelsey.
Yes.
I'm an 80s baby. I respect it, but no, and like, rocking kids, but you can only do that for so long. And then your shoulders and back hurt. You have to take care of your own body. Right.
Yeah.
And so like playgrounds, like getting out to the playground, then also has that multiple benefit of getting outdoors and having like their visual world change from inside to outside. I mean, today I was out with one of my kids, and there's often a very structured approach to how it goes. And I kind of looked at his mom and I said, do you mind if I go off-roading a little bit? We just got this brand new like stroller. He's 12. And I just rocked him up the hills and down the hills of this little park and playground and over the bumps of the trees. And, he didn't want to get out of the stroller, wasn't happy, but like over all the bumps, and then laughing and giggling. And it was this, like, I was just pushing the stroller faster, but he got that little bit of input and that extra input with the bumping. And if I'd stuck to the trail and the normal plan, which is usually what we do, because that feels more comfortable, I think, for him, I just thought, you know what, let's just get out of our comfort zones. I think the mom was like, oh my goodness, you're crazy. It was pouring rain today. Jen can attest. Like today was a miserable day in Vancouver. And I was like, heck, I'm taking this kid on, like, this is what this stroller's for. Like the wheels are like this big. And, like,
let's do it.
We didn't get this stroller for like, going on the cement. We got this for like a proper off-road. So, even just that, like leaning him back in the stroller, it changes the position of his head, like there's so many ways of getting input just with what we have. I love connect and regulate spaces. I call them connect and regulate spaces that are cozy. Potentially you can put a sheet over, you can change the lighting of, there's soft pillows, there's like those like flippy pillows, there's, the things that child loves in that corner, noise canceling headphones or earbuds and fidgets and balls. And, you can make stuff with sheets and cushions and toys. And I think when they know they have access to it, it's not just a special thing. It's like something that's available to them. They start to use it. Those door frame swings are pretty good too, but that's a little bit of an investment, but they work, putting a frame in the door and then hanging swings, either a forward and back swing or a Lycra swing.
That was a big lesson in the swing, because you said it needed to be accessible. So she learned to use it to regulate herself, not when I put it up and it was swing time. It was that distinct regulation.
Not giving it. One thing I want to go back to what you said, because oftentimes, like, as we learn, we're looking at these things that our kids are doing as behaviors. So like dumping. Mainly I'm in a dumping phase, so that's what comes to my mind
right now.
Tearing, jumping,
gather and scatter.
Yeah, gather and scatter, water play, like seeking out the dog dish, like all of these things we think of, or other people token them as behaviors. And this was a big thing for me to learn too, is like, if you can look at the behavior and say, what is happening? What is my child seeking out? Like my daughter was in a huge, it still is like in a fort making thing. And she needs that closed, dark space to regulate her body. It has to be perfect. Like the blankets have to be all lined so there's no light coming through, that, everything has to be lined up a specific way, which sometimes takes like an hour to get the whole thing. But she likes to do it herself because she wants to make it and put the blankets where she wants. But she's doing that because she needs a space to crawl into that's dark and away from everything else, But you would think like bringing the blanket over to me 400 times so I can re-put it on the thing, it seems like a behavior, but it's really like a request to help her regulate herself. So it took me a while to kind of learn, okay, if I don't get frustrated in this situation and I really look at what's happening here, although I have cleaned up so much water off this floor, I'm just going to say after 2 kids, it does get a little frustrating. You can then say, okay, if you want to dump water, let's get in the tub, or let's go outside to the water table, or let's put 4 bowls on the floor and a towel underneath, and you can dump there instead of like pouring everything out everywhere else. So it's really helped me to like learn that those things, those behaviors, what we call behaviors or other people call behaviors, are really like a tool to regulate a need. And how can we facilitate that in a way that's more
that works for everybody?
That works for everybody. Yep.
Well, I was going to say, like, so obviously Alyssa's older. So when she was younger, you didn't have access. Like, you couldn't buy a swing like you can now. Like there was no like online stores that you could like get sensory equipment. And the biggest thing that helped her, because she was a bouncer, so we were like literally human trampolines, like nonstop. We just always had a bouncer. But she had a yoga ball, like a big, huge yoga ball, and she would sit on that. She would eat on it. She'd go on her belly. She'd watch TV on it. Yeah. And they're like $15. If they had them available, we probably would have done something because her sensory need was so high. We just probably have a bad back now.
Well, I love balls. You're exactly right.
You had me buy one of those for Kaya to get her on the ground and put pressure, like roll on her with the ball.
Totally. You can do ball massages while they lie on the ground. You can roll it on. There's so many things you can do with a ball. Anything heavy, I'm trying to think, like I'm looking around. I have more equipment and random things than I, in my house. My husband, before we had kids, was like, looks like we have children already. And I want to have all the things,
Yeah. Do you want to try the yoga ball?
Yeah. Your back looks tight. I think I get told all the time, stop OTing me. All right.
That's fabulous.
What was your advice for parents?
Yeah, I was going to answer that because I know we didn't answer that. It might make me cry a little bit because it's my advice for myself too, as a parent. But like, just that idea of, as I've watched parents transform, Jenn is one of them. I just think about the Jenn that walked into my office 5 years ago and the Jenn now it's so beautiful. I feel honored to have bared witness to your process. And I think parents just need to lean in hard and soften to the changes, allow themselves to grieve, because regardless of it, there's a process of grieving what you thought was going to be the reality and maybe what is. And there's like everybody's process in that is different. And so it's like there's no one way to do it, but allowing yourself to do that and moving through that, I think, is transformative. And it's where we actually start to see the change for the child the most effectively, when I see this change, this shift in parents. And giving yourself space and grace and time. Just thinking about like the parents who have been willing to ask me the hard questions and be really vulnerable and actually just get into it are the ones that, and wrestle with those challenges. That is just that process is what helps clinicians, I think, who are willing to go there with them, really helps that process. And there is a difference between that feeling of being uncomfortable and being willing to move through something and doing your own inner work. And that feeling that like, this isn't right for my kid. And I think honing in on that and listening to it is key for parents, because not every clinician, not every space, not every school, not every soccer team or whatever they get involved in is going to be the right fit for them. And your gut will tell you. And yeah, sometimes there's a transition and it's hard. It doesn't mean we don't work through the hard, but that gut of like, this isn't quite right. Listen to that. And yeah, there's no one size fits all approach. I think we're all a little bit different, and there's lots of different philosophies out there. Jenn and I have talked about this, and I haven't really got too much into that, but I think recognizing the importance of connectedness with your child, that relationship is the most important. That will drive everything, no matter what therapy it is. Maintaining that relationship and that connection and getting to know them in their world will be what continues to guide it. So I don't know. That's what I'd say to parents. Having watched, only because I've watched this and it's beautiful to see it happen. Yeah.
Well, I know that we all wish there was more therapists like you.
Yes.
That thought, on that level for our kids, because, we trust our children to therapists, right? And we hang a lot of hope on you, which is a lot of pressure. And we know that, but.
Well, you guys know Kaya, like I literally spent weeks and months just being with her, just being. And that whole idea of, I have it in my office for other clinicians to see. And for me, it's little like letterboard, and it says, being is enough. And sometimes just being with them is enough, because she was getting used to the space and figuring it out. And I just think she just seemed like she just didn't know what to do. And it was here and thither, and she wasn't able to say a lot of words. But I did know when I did something she didn't like, it was like, she'd yell or whatever. And then
those that communication.
The last time I saw Kaya, she walks in, she goes, Chelsey, back gym. And she like marches me in the back, turn on Annie. And then she looks at me, she goes, sing. Cause I'm like, Jenn,
that's like, the kind we know.
She lets you sing. And I said, apparently I have an okay voice. And I am basically on Broadway with Kaya, singing, it's a hard knock life for us. And
my God.
But she's on the swing, the lights are off, the disco lights are on, she's swinging and moving and stimming, and I'm sitting beside her, and we're in our own world. And this is why I love my job, because I sometimes am like, I get to do this with these incredible humans. And yeah, it was just, anyway, she has changed so much, bossing me around now, which is awesome. So
yeah, she got that down. Yeah, she sure does.
One of the things that I hope you understand from us, as parents, we understand that you chose your line of work. And as such, you've chosen your caseload, which includes 15 or 30 minutes or 4 days a week with my daughter. And it matters to me that you chose, and you choose it every day, every morning when you come to work, every cranky that it doesn't work out, or some, life is happening. It's your work. But I adopted a baby in 2015 and I chose that. I chose to do that path. I had no idea what was coming. Okay. Hear me. I had no idea what was coming. And I've learned and I've grown, and I know that she's mine and should be, and all those things, but I didn't choose this life. You do. And it's just so powerful to me that you would be willing to serve 15 minutes per person, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week of families like ours. It means a lot.
Oh, Rachel, thank you.
Thank you.
You are a gem, Chelsey.
Oh,
One in a million.
Yes.
No doubt about that.
I love chatting with you. The one question we didn't answer, but I'll just answer in closing, is that, you guys said, why did you go into this work? Because this is what you've gone into, Rachel. And there is this, like, when you're young and you're 20 and your world is ahead of you and you want to be a helper and you're good with people. And it's this a little bit more of an altruistic, like, I'm going to offer my knowledge and expertise and I'm going to help people in practical ways. And, I do inherently believe everyone deserves to be felt, seen, heard, and meaningfully part of society. But now I show up with a very different why about like advocacy. Like I am a voice at that school and sometimes it's in that family, when you're the first voice, they come in with their autism diagnosis and I'm the first person that they're seeing. And like some of the first words out of my mouth are like, well, your child isn't purposefully doing this. And this is just, like there's a lot of that kind of like reframing and paradigm shifting. And there's a lot of us that are practicing in this way and trying to shift the paradigm and the conversation and the narrative around the lived experience of people who are different than them, than the people that are deciding on all the rules and the systems and the that kind of thing. And so now, like, I love to play and I love being part of people's lives, but it brings me so much joy to think that I've like stuck a little, like a little idea in there that maybe that is going to make that person think, that administrator or teacher think differently. And, or even like that other clinician in the room who, and it's not that I'm not accepting of lots of other ideas. I do think we have to really start having these hard conversations about what matters to these children and from the adults and the voices that we're hearing who've been through this as, the older children, who are able to share their experiences of what it was like to go through therapies and go through systems that didn't work well for them. And so that for me is the why now. It's not so altruistic. I feel like I'm not the one that brings all the knowledge to the table. But I do like gathering all the knowledge and putting it together and then summating it and making a strong point. So, Jen's seen me on my soapbox a few times. I think.
We've heard about it. Yes. You're remarkable. We're like doing a standing ovation 2.5 hours later.
Oh gosh. But it's not about me. It's really about these kids because they deserve, and you know what?
The thing is Chelsey, we don't know how we're supposed to phrase something to make action. Yeah. We think that we're at the table saying like, oh, I read on the internet, I should say sensory diet. What about a sensory diet? Right. And what's real is that I can demand that my daughter have the breaks that are necessary for her. And let's not even call it a break, take the chair away and change your mind. Yeah. But we don't know how to say it. Anyways, you've narrated lots of get done in myville.
Totally. Well, and Rachel, you know what? Admittedly, let's give you a little bit more credit than that. Oftentimes you do know how to say it and parents are discredited all the time and it's not right. So sometimes I'm like, okay, so I'm going to say all the things that we've talked about that you've said, but I'm going to say it in my like big clinician voice and hopefully somebody will take it on. And like I've had those conversations with parents. Sometimes
what's the www after that website? We need that.
Yeah, seriously. I have not in my finest moments. I have literally almost shouted, I am an educated person. Yes. Like, listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth, people. 100%. Listen to what I have to say here. It's just out of like pure, like feeling like you're lost in the room of providers who are throwing things in your direction. And that can be any person, no matter what your background is. You can end up feeling that way in a room full of people who think they know what it should be. It's just a mind melt is what it boils down to. And so if you can have a person on your team who's like, no, here's what needs to happen, instead of you having to like take that on as a parent, it's fantastic. I mean,
you guys are case managing so much and you're doing the 24/7. Like, Rachel, I love that you think 45 minutes is good. Like sometimes I'm done the 45 minutes and I'm like, oh my gosh, how is that mom going to do the rest of this week? Like there's.
Well, I'm glad to hear that crosses your dang mind because I'll tell you what, when some of these people are like, I'll grant you so much OT. It's called 15 minutes on Tuesdays. I'm like, and what on Wednesdays? What are you talking about for Thursdays, Mondays? Who's coming over? So
Yeah.
I think, thank you. Thank you.
You guys are like literally all
Because I'm sweating in my parts and I can't even sit down while you've got her. Jesus.
Oh my gosh. There were so many times Jen would come in. I'm like, I think you should go for a coffee. Like, can you just sit down and like do something that like for yourself for the next 45 minutes?
Yeah.
Whenever we invited her in, I think Jen was like, I don't want to come in.
I'm not going for flashel dancing today.
Get in the car. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thanks
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Get too sappy, but
I hope this isn't the end of this. You guys are
No, I
fantastic.
would love to have you back.
Yes. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you,
All right,
Chelsey.
everyone. Have a good evening.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Talk Like a Mother Parenting Autism podcast. If you are enjoying our podcast, make sure to rate and review us wherever you listen. And if you'd like to support us, you can become a subscriber. Just check out the description of this episode. Give us a follow on Facebook and Instagram for more content, and we'll see you next time.